Santosh sir. He's busy with another meeting and he'll be joining us in 15 minutes. And he's asked us to go ahead without him. First of all, I want to extend a very, very warm welcome to each one of you here. Thank you for taking out the time to join us today. And by now, I would have handed over to Samiran to give us the ICANN 69 highlights. But as many of you may be aware, he's not feeling too well, so he wouldn't be able to join us. And I will walk you through the highlights or the key sessions or discussions that happened during ICANN 69. As many of you are aware, this was the third all-virtual ICANN 69 ICANN meeting and the first all-virtual annual general meeting. There were around 100 sessions, out of which I'm going to walk you through 3 key sessions or the plenary sessions that happened this time around. Apart from that, we'll have SO and AC-wise updates, wherein each speaker will probably bring to you the more important discussions that happened during each of those SOs and AC meetings. The first one, and a very interesting session indeed, was one that was domain name business, everything you want to know, ask, or discuss. This session provided a great overview as to how the business has evolved over the years. What are some of the innovative models that have emerged? And it also provided interesting insights as to what are the sort of methods or mechanisms registries and registrars employ to scale up their operations. And this was something also that we came across where we were doing a study on the domain name market in India, where we talked to a lot of businesses and stakeholders, and they said that the key a chunk of revenues is not really from the domain name business per se, but it is from the value-added services that the registry really engages in. And so this was a really interesting session where you had registries and people involved in the businesses talking to you about how they've scaled up their operations or some of the innovative methods that they have employed to say, come up with interesting consumer insights. And they did this with the help of around 5 case studies that they walked you through. Or sometime, and there was also a session on GOTLDs and how really GOTLDs could be used, geographic names in the top level domain could be employed and exploited to reap economic, social, as well as cultural benefits. The other important discussion, and I think this is something that has been an important area of discussion since the ICANN meeting in Montreal, I think it was the ICANN 66, which is about domain name abuse. And in this particular discussion, you again had varied perspectives. One was where you had a presentation on trends of abuse, where they talked to you about the DAR numbers, the domain abuse activity reporting, what are the key trends been like, how has it been with the new GTLDs, instances of abuse, what constitutes abuse. Then there was also an update wherein an upcoming report from SSAC and the DNS Abuse Work Party was discussed, and which said that it is seeking to outline a strategy to address methodologies, practices, and cooperation necessary for reducing DNS abuse. Another important point that emerged from these discussions was the need to have an entire ecosystem built around domain name abuse. And this would, of course, include how do you define abuse, what are some of the methods that can be employed to thwart or mitigate abuse, but also about increasing awareness and education amongst the consumers and how it is imperative to have an entire ecosystem built around it without just focusing on 1 or 2 aspects. The other thing that I think we are all aware about now is that how what basically is the definition of abuse and whether what all falls within the remit of ICANN. And as we know that there is really a lack of coherence or agreement within the community also about it, wherein you have registries saying that we can't really be going into the domain of content, and when ICANN.org says that what is abuse like and how do you define abuse, and there was also a discussion how there is probably a need now to have a unified and a more agreed definition about abuse, and then you have a consensus as to how to mitigate those abuses and the actions you need to take. Apart from that, another session was who changes under GDPR and the impact to end users and public safety. This session was primarily, as the name suggests, it sought to understand how redaction of data has impacted different stakeholders within the community. So you had a representative from the Federal Trade Commission who talked about how this is hurting consumer interests, and especially end users. Sometimes, they look at domain names to understand whether this business is a bona fide business, is it a legitimate business, and how not being able to access that sort of information hurts end consumer. That was one perspective that was brought across. The second perspective was the LEA perspective, where the law enforcement agency representative said that not having access to this data and having a process in place, you do have a process in place for accessing redacted data, but the time lost is costs deeply and really hurts their ability to prevent abuse. And lastly, you had an end user perspective where, Milton Mueller, he said that every individual has a right for their personally identifiable information to be redacted. And what you really need is a more focused SSAD, a system for standardized information disclosure. And you need to build a system which is predictable, which is efficient. And that is a sort of response that you need as a community, as opposed to saying that data should not be redacted or how this is really hurting legitimate interests. So this is the key or the basic discussion within the plenary sessions. If any of you feels that there's something that has been missed from one of these sessions or any other important discussion area within the ICANN 69, I would recommend and encourage each one of you to step in now, or maybe at the end of the discussion where we have the stakeholder discussion in a free flow of ideas. With this, if there's anything that anybody would want to add, please let me know. Or if there's any question. All right, then I'm assuming there are no questions and no comments as of now. May I now request somebody from NIXI to please come and give the CCNSO updates. I'm given to understand that Mr. Jain could not join in us today, and there's somebody else from NIXI who'd be giving us the updates.
Video start close. Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon, everybody. Actually, on behalf of NIXI, I am Shantanu Acharya. And as you have said that Mr. Jain is not in office today due to some personal reason. So first of all, I would like to thank to Enter Fraternity for being attended here. And thank you, Isha, for taking us through the entire ecosystem of internet and letting us know how it is evolving nowadays. So now, on behalf of NIXI, I would like to ask Mr. Rajiv Kumar to take us through about the ICANN 69 readout.
All right, thank you, Rajiv. Welcome, Rajiv. Request you to do the honors, please.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, member, and thank you, Isha. Give an opportunity for NIXI to give an update of CCNSO NSO update. So, as you already told that it is a virtual meeting, and the meeting is. Are you audible all?
Yes, you're audible, Rajiv ji.
Okay. As you already told that this is a 3 times the ICANN is in a virtual mode, and the first AGM is a virtual. So the virtual mode, and in 69 AGM was held in a two-part, community days and plenary week. The community week days is the 30th October to 15th October, and the plenary week is the 19th to 20th October 2020. As you know that the CCNSO is the one of the three supporting organizations within ICANN, created in 2003 for and by the CCTLD member. Administered by the CCNSO Council, with the consist of 18 candidates, 15 elected by CCNSO member, and 3 appointed by nominating committee of ICANN. CCNSO was held in the community days, that is from 13th to 15th October 2020. In this meeting, the following session was covered. First session is CCNSO members meeting. The member meets and discuss about the future plan and the policy development. Second is the governance of the CCNSO. I already told that CCNSO was created in 2003 and start from 2004. The bylaws and the guideline was created that times when the member is only 15. Now it was discussed that in this meeting we can review the guideline, CCNSO guideline. Now member become the 170 plus. So it need to review the guideline of the CCNSOs. This is also in this meeting, the session was in DNS in the time of COVID-19. The pros, cons, experience of COVID-19 was discussed during this meeting. Question answer with candidate for ICANN board 12 seat 12. There is a 2 seat represented by CCNSO. One is seat 11, another is seat 12. This time the seat 12 meeting was held. 2 candidates was approached for the meeting for this seat. One is Katina Sataki and one is the Nigro. The only one member is stand for that meeting, the Katina, and the question answer was held, and they got approximately 80 plus vote from the members. The another session was question answer with candidate for the council, CCNSO council election. I want to convey the message to the message to the member that this time Shri Anil Kumar Jain, CEO NIXI, fought for the election of CCNSO council member for Asia Pacific region. We are supported by 11 members of AP region, but the winner was Chinese candidate and get a 13 votes. So we short by 2 votes. Another session was PDP retirement of CCTLD. In this session, as you know that CCTLD is the country code top level domain name, and it is as per the standard ISO 3166 standard 2-letter code of the country. In this session, the report was come with the member, and the member was discussed that the INA is not a authority to decide the country code. Actually, it is decided by ISO 3166 standard. Then ISO 3166 will be removed or add the CCTLD as per their wishes. Accordingly, INA will also update whatever the country code is available in 3166 available, then is add or it will be removed accordingly. But the retirement was take a minimum 5 years and maximum 10 years due to the age of the domain name. Is some country is maximum 5 years and some country has a maximum 10 years, 0 to 10 years and 0 to 5 years. So it was decided that we can implement the CCSO retirement as per the ISO 3166 country code, and the maximum time will be take 10 years, but minimum is the 5 years. This all was that discussed during the CCSNO member meeting. Thank you members, and thank you, sir. Any question?
Thank you, Rajiv, for walking us through, and it's really great to see that people are taking interest, and especially Mr. Jain is taking such a keen interest in increasing Indian participation at ICANN. Are there any questions?
There is quantum security.
All right, then moving ahead, may I request Amrita to please share with us ALAC updates and also any other areas that you think merits a discourse.
Thanks, Isha, and hello, everyone. I'll just give you a brief overview from the at-large perspective of what happened during ICANN 69. I hope I'm audible to all.
Yes, Amrita, you are.
Thank you. So at-large, as you may know, represents the internet end users. At-large held 16 sessions during the ICANN 69 tenure, event tenure. And they were primarily divided into 3 tracks. One was related to at-large policy, one was related to at-large outreach and engagement, and the third part of the sessions were primarily related to at-large operations. Apart from it, before ICANN, there were 2 preparatory sessions which at-large held. One was to introduce ICANN 69 and webinar, and it was a webinar to give a feel to the people of what was expected from at-large, and the other was an at-large social media webinar. So when we talk about the at-large policy activities, the sessions which were there, at-large primarily discussed the end-user perspective with respect to the expedited EPDP, the new GTLD subsequent procedures, and the ICANN multi-stakeholder model with the joint sessions with ICANN board, including how to make the virtual environment more engaging. Because we, from the end user perspective, have found that many people find it difficult to even engage in the sessions, especially when you do not have, people cannot see each other or even chat with each other. And at-large also discussed points of common consensus regarding the new GTLD subsequent procedures and the EPDP during a session, the Government Advisory Committee. Just one moment, please. Just give me a moment. Sorry. And then there were also discussions with GAC on the outcomes of the sessions. GAC also showed a lot of interest in the DNS abuse education campaign, and they also selected a new GAC liaison to be with ALAC on this. In addition, the ALAC and GAC had a session arranged that after ICANN 69, there would be a session to discuss on certain commonalities and do a comparative analysis of the ALAC, the GAC, the ICANN org, and the ICANN board position on the new GTLD subsequent procedures to see where there are commonalities between the ALAC and the GAC. Simultaneously, at-large policy, among the at-large policy sessions, there was also a session called Beyond Budapest, the UN Cybercrime Treaty and DNS abuse, coordinating the internet unique identifiers and the interest of end users. And there was also a session on the at-large community and DNS abuse, an end-user education campaign. Now, at-large has been having these DNS abuse sessions over the last 3 meetings, and this has actually, and most of the community members have shown interest in it, because this, though, statistics say that DNS abuse is not that much high, but in reality, even the minuscule numbers are actually huge. Also, at-large had policy discussions with the non-commercial stakeholder group during a joint ALAC and NCSG meeting on the topic of ICANN and human rights, a way forward. Now, when we talk about the track 2, which is on engagement and outreach activity, for the first time in the ICANN public meeting, there was an at-large structure session called the ICANN at-large Ensuring Community Engagement in Pandemic, which highlighted the work being done by the different ALSs in different parts of the world, both ALS members as well as individual members, who spoke of how they are contributing to promote the work of ICANN within their communities, even at the present pandemic context. There was also a session on outreach and engagement. At-large participated in the CPWG moderated session on engagement group on internet governance, on digital platforms and regulations. There was a joint African regional at-large meeting, which focused on the topic of status, impact, and recommendations from the universal acceptance in Africa. Since this meeting was supposed to be in Europe, so the European Region at-large organization, which is also called as EURALO, held 2 European stakeholder roundtable on the topic of European perspective on ICANN and internet governance. So the first one was focused on answering the question that, as a European leader of the ICANN community, can you point out one important topic from ICANN and its community from the European perspective and explain why? And the second part was asked the question, as a European leader of the ICANN community and participant to internet governance activities, can you point out one topic for you or your group in ICANN perspective and explain why? So these were very interesting discussions. Apart from it, the social media working group had held their Twitter competitions. The at-large regional leaders met the at-large regional leaders meeting actually featured updates of the GSE team of ICANN, the RALO leaders, and the outreach engagement regional liaisons. There was also a presentation about the at-large regional policy engagement program. Now, when we talk about operations, the at-large leaders had an ICANN 69 welcome introductory session. And in the agenda, there was also a discussion on, with a lot of actually reports coming out, how can actually people know what to look at and what not to look at. And as at-large participates in new structures, the at-large community, there was sharing that there was a strategy developed to identify how at-large can prioritize its own, the strategies which are important and advocate them effectively. And this session was just the beginning of organizing various recommendations and to determine what at-large's priorities should be. And the outcomes include exploration of new tools for collaboration and the formation of the at-large operations, finance, and budget operating working group to lead this process. And also there was an update given of the ALAC's 2020 achievement with the at-large working group chairs, RALO chairs, and liaisons present. And of course, there was a transition of power during this meeting, wherein there were a few people in the leadership who joined in, especially recruited from the NOMCOM, as well as some organically within the RALOs. So this is an overview of, in a few minutes, of what happened at large. That's all from me now. I'm happy to take questions.
Thank you so much, Amrita, for those comprehensive set of overview, really. If there are any questions, are there any in the chat window? Fine, then if there are any questions, we'll come to it during the end of this session. Santosh sir has just joined. So I'd now request Santosh sir to please join in and give us certain updates from the GAC perspective at ICANN 69.
Yeah, thank you, Isha.
Thank you,
And,
sir.
Thank you, ICRIER, for again hosting this event, organizing this event virtually. So apologies all, actually I was in a meeting at Ministry of External Affairs. That is why I am not speaking as per the agenda. So I have just reached my office back. So regarding GAC activities, yes, so on the current, the meeting which we had held was the ICANN 69, in which there were 67 GAC members and 5 observers, including India's, who has attended this remotely. So each day during this meeting, the GAC chair conducted an informal update for members who found it difficult to participate due to the time zone issues. So these updates provided information to GAC members about the session held, say, earlier a day before, and offered a preview of sessions, what is going on for the next day ahead. So GAC discussed upon majorly on 3 issues, which I hope that these issues were also discussed by the earlier. So the issues were on a new generic top-level domain subsequent procedures, DNS abuse, EPDP phase 2, then which includes access to GTLD registration data, and a new track that was on ICANN's operational design phase proposal. Now, on the issue of new GTLD subsequent procedures, the GAC was briefed on the recent developments since ICANN 68. This included the GAC consensus comment submitted to the public comment process on the new GTLD subsequent procedures PDP final report, which came a month before the ICANN 69 meeting. And what Government of India has put up the comments was on the issues on the applicant support, GAC early warning, and the GAC advice within the GAC, which Government of India has put in through GAC. And this was reflected in the final collective comment. Now the PDP co-chair who has briefed the GAC mentioned about the issues like predictability, closed generics, application support, auction, and community application. And during the discussion, it was highlighted that the PDP is expected to deliver the final report to the GNSO Council by this month end, with the assumption that the policy recommendation will be delivered to the ICANN board by the first quarter of 2020. I presume my earlier speakers might have mentioned about this as well. Now, regarding DNS abuse, the GAC Public Safety Working Group experts shared with the GAC a sense of continued level of threats, particularly on phishing, malware, as well as the magnitude of harm this threats cause. So beyond debates of trends, statistics, and share of abusive registration in specific GTLDs, GAC participants pointed to a devastating real-world consequences. And it was mentioned that the recent cyber attacks on hospitals in particular in one of the sessions. Now, given this severity of the threat and magnitude of harm, the Public Safety Working Group expressed that ICANN's work should focus on the speed of response by responsible parties wherever applicable, accuracy of registration information, then clear and enforceable contract provisions with consequences, and continued communication and coordination with relevant parties. So during the discussion, there were concerned among most of the ICANN stakeholder groups is the enforceability of key contract provisions which are directly related to DNS abuse, which is called public interest commitments, in short, PIC. So there were agreement among stakeholders when we had GAC had discussion with the various SOs and ACs that concrete proposal for changes in contractual provisions will help constructively influence future agreements. So PSWG leaders recommended engaging ICANN contractual compliance and affected stakeholders to come up with concrete proposal addressing the gaps and lack of clarity in the current contracts. So these are the ones in which GAC and other SOs and ACs discussed. Now coming to the EPDP phase 2, access to GTL registration data, the representative of the GAC small group on GDPR as well as EPDP provided an overview of the status of policy development and discussed the conclusion of the phase 2 of the EPDP of the GTL registration data. Now, during the GAC session, GAC reviewed the recommendation of the EPDP phase 2 final report for the SSAD, which is called System for Standardized Access and Disclosure. As this was as the panelists and the participants very well know that this has been adopted by the GNSO Council for consideration of the ICANN board. The GAC specifically noted that the consensus has been reached on matters of accreditation purposes and centralization of request, while GAC also noted that no consensus could be achieved on the centralization and automation of disclosure of the registration data. Now, during the GAC meetings, we raised, we means India, raised our concerns regarding the potential funding to establish this SSAD mechanism. So we raised whether it would be wholly funded by ICANN or how the funding mechanism it would be. Now, during the meeting with the ICANN board, they responded by stating that previous general estimated provided by the EPDP team would be revisited on that. I mean, there's some mechanism was earlier provided to the ICANN org. Then that would be revisited and the cost benefit analysis would be done by the EPDP phase 2 policy recommendation. So that was the reply which was given to us. And during the GAC meeting, the GAC highlighted that there are consensus with the recommendation which were recorded in the GAC minority statement. So there were a GAC minority statement which was issued to the GNSO, which was during August 2020, and shared in part on, I mean, this was part of the ALAC, SSAC, and IP as well as BC, that is intellectual property and business constituency of the GNSO. The GAC also discussed the concern with non-consensus recommendation, which were adopted by GNSO Council and recommended to ICANN board. Now, there was a discussion regarding the ICANN operational design fees proposal. It is very, I mean, it has recently started during the current, during the ICANN 69 meeting. So during that meeting, GAC members noted that the proposed new phase would seem to call for an expansion of ICANN policy development lifecycle and expressed concern that operational implementation consideration should be a fundamental part of the standard PDP effort. Now, as I had mentioned initially, that we had bilateral meetings with SOs and ACs also. So as we had a meeting with the ICANN board as well as ALAC. So during the meeting with ICANN board, the matter which I had initially mentioned, mainly on new GTLD, domain name registration data, then ATR RT3 final report recommendation were discussed with the ICANN board. And my earlier panelist, that is from ALAC, the GAC also met with ALAC and also discussed EPDP phase 2, wherein the two committees identified several points of common interest regarding the EPDP effort and agreed to work together on matter of common interest like new GTLD as well as educating the end users about the DNS abuse. So this was all which was discussed during ICANN 69 at GAC. And thank you again.
Thank you so much, Santosh sir, for joining in and really providing us with those great set of updates. Next up is RSSAC and SSAC updates. Usually we have Anupam joining in and giving us these updates, but this time around, we couldn't really get through to him. I think he's busy with something else. So I would request Abhishek to fill in and give us basically an overview about what really happened within ICANN 69, what are some of the working groups and policy development discussions that are undergoing within these two ACs. Abhishek?
Thank you, Isha. Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Okay. A very good afternoon to everyone present here. Thank you for joining in. So I am Abhishek and I currently work at ICREER. I'll be sharing with you updates from RSSAC, which is Root Server System Advisory Committee, and SSAC, which is Security and Stability Advisory Committee. As Isha already mentioned, Anupam couldn't join this time, so I'll take care of these updates. So first, let's begin with updates from RSSAC. So at ICANN 69, there were 4 major sessions which involved RSSAC. So first one was a meeting of RSSAC caucus, and second and third sessions were RSSAC work sessions in which the work parties that are functioning advance their work. The fourth was RSSAC's joint meeting with board on the topic of RSS governance. So moving on to the work parties that are currently functioning in RSSAC. So there are currently 3 work parties working on different topics. First one is Rogue Operator Work Party. Second is Local Perspective Tool Work Party. And third one is Work Party for MOU. So at ICANN 69, first and second work party advanced their work. So coming to Rogue Operator Work Party. So this work party is currently led by Ken Renard. And the idea for having this work party comes from RSSAC 037, which is proposed governance model for root server system. In that document, there is a mention of a designation and removal function. So actually, this is how you designate a new RSO or remove an existing RSO. So obviously, the removal will happen only when the root server operator has done something bad. And that bad is defined in terms of operator going rogue. So the aim of this work party is to develop the scenarios for RSOs going rogue. And actually, there are 11 guiding principles that are mentioned in RSAC 037. So this work party is trying to develop multiple scenarios for each guiding principle. For example, they have developed this scenario. Suppose RSO takes a few records out of the root zone, and this makes a GTLD effectively disappear. So this violates a guiding principle that mentions that true source of root zone is IANA. So coming on to the second work party that met during ICANN 69 was Local Perspective Tool Working Party. So the aim of this working party is to develop tool and metrics needed in order to measure the local perspective in order to improve internet services in general and root server system services in particular. So this tool would help in measuring and identifying inadequate infra and identifying location for suppose new root server instance. So this was about a second work party. This is in very preliminary phase. They are deciding upon the agenda and all. Third update from RSSAC is on governance working group. As many of you might know, the work on RSS governance started with RSX 037, which is a proposed governing model, and this was followed by a concept model by ICANN. So in this model, a governance working group is established for finalizing the governance model. So currently, this group is in process of debating and discussing about model, and as per their update during ICANN 69, they aim to start implementation of this model by 2022. So this was all about RSAC. Now I'll move to SSAC. So with regard to SSAC, there were 3 sessions at ICANN 69. 2 of them were joint meeting with of SSAC with board and GNSO, and the 3rd session was a public meeting of SSAC. So giving you a brief about the work parties that are currently working as SSAC. So there is a work party on DNS abuse. So this work party aims to develop a framework related to abuse, and they will come up with a report which captures issues pertaining to who has the primary point of responsibility to address abuse, what should be the escalation path. Also, a noteworthy point here is that SSAC is not going to provide a definition for DNS abuse, rather they will provide a kind of framework to how to deal with these abuses. So apart from work party, 2 SSAC reports were majorly discussed during ICANN 69. So first report is SAC 113, which is SSAC advisory on private use TLD. So in this report, SSAC recommended criteria for strings for private use. So the criteria are such as valid DNS label. The string should not have been already delegated in root zone, and it should not be confusingly similar to a GTLD in existence, and obviously short and meaningful. So apart from this report, there was a second report termed as SAC 112, which is a kind of minority statement on the final report of temporary specification for GTLD. So in this report, SSAC does not endorse the final temp spec report of GTLD and believes that a much better system is possible within limitations of GDPR. So this was the reports that are being that have been published by SSAC recently. And also another important update that I would like to share with the community is that SSAC is looking for members, and they're particularly interested in having members from Africa region, Latin America, and Asia Pacific region. So I encourage the participants here to look at this. So there is basically a SSAC skill survey which will let you know the potential skills that are required to be a SSAC member. So this was from my side. I'll be sharing the resources for the session that I've discussed in the chat box. So thank you. So this was from my side. If anyone would like to add something, feel free to add.
Thank you so much, Abhishek, for those interesting set of updates and also that useful information as to how we can engage better and build capacity within, and also show that capacity at the ICANN level. And nothing like volunteering at these groups. Anybody who has any question, feel free to please drop in your questions even in the chat window while a presentation, and we'll come to them at the end of the session. And Abhishek has also put in, as promised, the resources that you guys can access, look at, and I think do what you feel like doing with them. All right, then moving on. I'm guessing there are no questions right now. Moving on, I'd like to request Millie Simlani to share with us the NCUC updates. Thank you for joining us, Millie. Over to you.
Thanks, Isha, and hello, everyone. I hope you've all been fine wherever you are. I have a pretty short update for NCUC because we just had one community session, and most of the other policy work happened at NCSG and the GNSO Council level. But for us at NCUC, it was an important time in the year because this is when the leadership transition happens, and there were quite a few new joinees to the EC. I mean, I'm on my second term, but there were a few more representatives from Europe and North America who just had their first term, so they've joined in. And we also discussed a lot around the appointments to NCSG, the NCSG EC, and the policy committee, which is a very important element for our structure and the way NCUC engages with the policy work. The second other essential thing that we spoke about was the Troika merger. This is something that's been happening at the internal level at NCSG, NCUC, and NCOP. And this is a discussion that's been going on for the past half of 2020, I think. And we've come to a conclusion that we'll set up an independent committee within the group that will study this proposition. So this committee has been set up already, and they're currently studying this proposition on what it means to merge all these 3 constituencies into one or not. And then going forward by 2021, we will have a better approach on how we can reorganize this constituency and how we can then continue engaging with the policy at the GNSO level. So that's another important discussion that happened for us at 69. Another one was discussing on our capacity building initiatives. Considering this is something that we always liaised with the at-large and something that we did in sync with them. And now with the recent additional budget requests being approved, NCUC is also stepping out to do their own capacity building trainings, which will be a little more policy development focused, because that is what sets us apart from the kind of stuff that at-large does. So it's going to be a little more hands-on in terms of learning to write policy documents, be able to participate in those discussions with or without a relevant educational background. So this is another task in, I would say, in discussion. We're still figuring the approach that we want to take and the kind of capacity building initiative virtually, of course, at this point, that we can come up with, and how to most effectively use the budget between NCSG and POC and NCUC. So that's another one that we've been talking about. Another important on the policy side now, we were talking about the upcoming GNSO review and trying to prepare our constituency for what we have coming up. But there is also an increasing discussion on how the ATR P3 results implementation is sort of conflicting, and there might be a decision to postpone the GNSO review, which is going to be confirmed at the next GNSO policy call this month. So that's another of the internal focus. With respect to policy, I'm sure the GNSO policy updates will cover that as well. But most of it was EPDP, the phase 2A, and also the temporary specification check within it, which is being now considered. I mean, that's the deliberation that at the NCUC level we're still we're working on during ICANN 69. And I guess for me, these few short updates kind of wrap it up for all the action that we have. And going forward, it's mostly the ABR, that's the EC is going to be focusing on that for the next few months. And we'll have more concrete approach to that by the time we reach the next ICANN meeting. Thank you all for listening, and I hope you are all in good health.
Thank you, Millie. Thanks. Any questions for Millie? Okay, then I'm very excited to invite the next member. She's Youth Perspectives. Tanishka would be sharing with us her own journey, and I'm really excited to see a fresh face on the agenda. So welcome, Tanishka, and over to you.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I am Tanishka Lohia, today here representing youth from Youth for IG, and I take immense pleasure to be here and come across such innovative ideas and people. My journey with internet governance is quite new and still feels very surreal because I came across IG through various webinars that I attended at Global Youth India. It's an organization where I'm currently serving as a member of the Sustainable Development Goals Council, and one of the other councils, that is Innovation and Technology Council, hosted a webinar that aimed to discuss how to make sure that the internet becomes a safer and much more secure space than it currently is. And I was impressed to discover about the idea of internet governance. And since I have a curious nature, I started researching about the same. And as my interest in IG grew, I came across Youth for IG, and I was beyond delighted to come across a youth-led organization that cares so much and works for internet governance. Thus, as I joined Youth for IG, I got to know about the meetings ICANN holds to encourage global participation in the process of IG. And since I'm here today attending ICANN Readout as a youth representative, I feel proud to say that as a young girl from India, I can contribute towards the achievement of ICANN goals. And since we all acknowledge that young people are the digital natives of the whole internet society, and they represent a significant portion and proportion of end users. And receiving such opportunity to share my views and opinions about the same, I feel very grateful. And as a person who is still learning about this field and still discovering, I am eagerly looking forward to gaining and learning a lot from all the members of this wonderful community. Once again, thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you so much, Tanishka. And as you rightly put, there can't be any policy that internet related to internet without really involving the youth of the country and the world, really. And we're all learning here. This is a space where we all learn and from each other, and that's the spirit. So thank you, really. Now I'll quickly walk each one of you through the GNSO updates. Broadly as to what discussions happened during the ICANN 69. There were a total of 29 sessions. A lot of discussions and a lot of points have already been covered by Santosh sir, Amrita, and Millie, as to what these and I'm sure with the amount of meetings we've been having, most pre and post, a lot of those have been discussed. So I'll just give a crisp update if there has been any, and any new development that happened during this meeting. So there were a total of 29 sessions, which included GNSO PDP working group sessions. You had sessions devoted to constituency work, stakeholder work, and then there was the GNSO council meeting. Some of the important discussions and outcomes that came from some of these meetings, and especially the PDP meetings. First one is, the EPDP work on temporary specification for GTLE registration data. And this was also at this particular meeting, they did not meet. The EPDP phase 2 meet, the team as such did not meet, but there were a lot of other sessions that happened wherein the work that the EPDP phase 2 and the report that they've come out with was deliberated upon. And also the webinar that happened, I believe, on 24th September 2020 was discussed at length as to, and some of the discussions was also about the consensus. Was there enough consensus built? And apart from that, there was also, when phase 1, the temporary specification, the temp spec that came out, there was a part of work that was delegated to phase 2 of the EPDP, which included legal versus natural person, accuracy of data, and also anonymization of unique email ID. Now, the EPDP phase 2 has also not been able to come up with any sort of recommendations for specifically these three areas, and they've now said that it would now move to, and they put this forward, that it will now move to phase 2A, which will specifically look to answer some of these questions that have remained unanswered during phase 2. And so that was discussed. The other thing that I'll also be talking about, and which Santosh sir pointed out, is the operational design framework, the operational design phase, as to how that would work practically, the workings of it. And in the APDP phase 2 also, they said that for the SSAD, there are certain other issues that the ICANN org has to look into, as to how do you practically implement some of the recommendations that the PDP has come up with. Again, the council meeting also discussed the EPDP phase 2, wherein it said that there are a number of outstanding issues. First one being legal versus natural persons, and second being feasibility of unique contacts. How do you anonymize, how feasible it is to have an anonymized email for unique contacts? How does that work? Is it possible, not possible? Those sort of things. And they've now delegated it to phase 2A, I believe, wherein these points would be discussed upon. The other thing was discussion regarding the new GTLD sub-pro. Before the ICANN 69 meeting, the new GTLD subsequent procedures had come up with their report, and the public comment period was open intersessionally. And then I believe they received around 50 comments, and during the sessions, the PDP, the working group, discussed some of those comments, and some of the major comments were also deliberated upon. I believe they discussed the GAC comments, and they'd also discussed the ICANN org's comments. And so right now, they were in the process of preparing a final report, And once that final report of public comments is out, then are there any amendments, so to say, that are required to their recommendations or not? One of the more discussed about points from the comments was also the org's comments about public interest commitments, as they have now been called registry voluntary commitments. And the ICANN org and the board have just given a red flag saying that, we understand, while, public interest commitments, and we understand that prior to this, there was no, so the applicant guidebook just put in place or recognized the concept of public interest commitments, but the policy that 2012 AGB came from really did not talk about PICs. And now with this new report, the new GTLD Subpro, they've really relied immensely on registry voluntary commitments, and they've put it across as a method through which parties could reach a negotiation, making the process more predictable. And the ICANN org has said that we don't really know that some of the things that you are seeking to include or incorporate into the contract or into the agreement are within the remit of ICANN. So this is more like a red flag. And the board hasn't really said yes or no, but the board has just said that we're not sure if the bylaws allow for it. And then there definitely needs to be more discussion regarding it. The other thing that the GNSO Council meeting has also discussed about is the, again, operational design phase that the board is, the ICANN org is going to look into. And the operational design phase primarily or predominantly seeks to look at 5 major things. One is risks, then your anticipated costs, the resources that would be required, the requirements for those resources, potential timelines for implementation. Now, there is also a bit of a tussle, because this is after the PDP phase 2, and what the org, how that is envisaging ODP is that it will become a part of the policy implementation life cycle. And the org is saying that once the recommendations are with the org or the board, then the board also wants to undertake an exercise which evaluates those recommendations across these broad 5-6 parameters, where it looks at whether it is feasible or not to really implement some of these recommendations. Can we do it? How do we do it? Do we have the sufficient resources or not? So those are some of the things that the org wants to look into, and they want that to be a part of the policy life cycle. And the GNSO raised concerns as to saying that policy development or policy development regarding as per the bylaws or as per the functioning of the organization, so to say, currently stands, and also as per the bylaws, is within the remit of GNSO. And they feel that this would be encroachment upon the roles and responsibility of GNSO. So on November 20th, 2012, the board has replied to the GNSO concerns, and they said, we understand your concerns. And we also understand that, we within the bylaws are not allowed to really, or are barred from getting into the policy design phase, so to say. But then what they have looked for and asked GNSO to return is a sort of a response or a document which clearly delineates or enumerates what the policy part of that entire PDP or the recommendation is, and what board can and cannot do. So basically, and this is the word, and that the board has also written back saying that we need guardrails as to, okay, this is the sole area of GNSO, and this is where org cannot encroach. So if the community, it's a bottom-up process, if the community says that this needs to be incorporated, then you really have to figure out a way to incorporate it. And there is only so much that the org can do. So it's really going to be interesting as to how this really pans out. And the other, of course, concern that has been raised by not only GNSO, but also other community members is the amount of delays that it might lead to. Already we know that PDPs really take a long time to finish, and there are delays, and especially with owing to this pandemic, it's really thrown things a little off track. So those are some of the concerns that even the GNSO raised and discussed during its meeting. Apart from that, there was another important discussion or session, and a report should be out soon, is on the rights protection mechanisms. basically it's a revisit of the URS and the are the rights protection mechanisms as they currently stand sufficient, or is there anything else that is required? And more or less, the working group has finished its work, and they are finalizing the report. During this meeting, some of the things that they discussed was the language of dispute, and if there's any amendment to the language that is required on to the URS agreement or not. And the other thing was if the existing safeguards within the TMCH, the existing safeguards in the erstwhile agreement regarding the application launch program, are they sufficient, or do you want to expand the scope? The other thing that was discussed was that can legitimate trademark owners or can TMCH's role be expanded to also include geographical indications? But that was the answer to that was no. I mean, because that's what the working group has said. The working group has said that goes beyond the charter for what TMCH was originally constituted. So from where we currently stand, it looks like the next round will also not look at GI as a protected IPs, which is also something that the community may want to deliberate upon now or in future, however. So that's it for the GNSO updates. I would now like to request Abhishek to join in and give us some tech updates. And this is something, this is a new initiative, and this is Abhishek's idea. He was very enthused about the tech day sessions that happened at ICANN. And so this is something that he wants to try out. And we hope that, we add on to these sessions and we can really build something interesting from these tech day updates. So Abhishek, over to you. Thank you. And any questions, please? I'm sorry, I should have asked that first. All right, I'm guessing there are no questions as of now. So Abhishek, over to you for the tech day updates, please.
Thank you, Isha. I know it's Friday evening.
Yeah.
Will be tired. So Rajkumarji, can I have my slide deck, please? Rajkumarji? Thank you. So yeah, in this presentation, I will be sharing with you updates from Tech Day at ICANN 69. So basically, Tech Day is a day-long session in which speakers from across the region make presentations related to new technological advancements and developments which are happening in DNS space. So as Isha already pointed out, we have included this in our agenda for the first time, since we felt that it is also important to update the community regarding what is happening on technology front. And please note that we are not tech expert, but the idea is to open a thread for discussion. So if we miss out on something, or if you want to add, feel free to add. Next slide, please. So these were the 8 sessions that were covered in at Tech Day. So first session was related to universal acceptance, in which Dr. Ajay Data, as many of you might know, presented findings from a UA readiness report. It is to be noted that this is the same report which was discussed by him during the pre-meeting brief we organized. And the second and third presentation was related to RDAP, which is a newer version of WHOIS protocol. Fourth session was related to cyber attack on Grancy. So this is a different kind of cyber attack which normally happens. So this was covered. Fifth one was on NotDNS. So NotDNS is basically a high performance open source authoritative DNS server, and it supports multi-threaded and log-free implementation. So after that, sixth presentation was on IoT registry. So this is a new concept that is coming out. CIRA is registry operator for .ca. So they have developed an IoT framework which they claim to be zero touch and highly scalable. Then there was presentation on DNSSX deployment, in which mainly statistics related to DNSSX and the algorithms used in such as hash algorithms were discussed. Finally, there was a presentation on drones and IoT devices, in which specifically a protocol called DRIP, which is drone remote IP protocol, I guess. discussed. So of this session, I've picked a few sessions to describe in detail. I thought it merited a discourse for discussion. So if anyone of you have attended other sessions, so feel free to add. So first, I would cover this RDAP. So RDAP stands for the Registry Data Access Protocol. Basically, as the name suggests, it is a protocol which enables users to access current registration data. And it was created as an eventual replacement for WHOIS protocol. So it is believed that its implementation will change and standardize data access and query response format, which is not standardized in WHOIS. So as far as developers are concerned, this protocol was developed by technical community in IETF. RDAP standards are described in IETF RFCs 7480 to 7484 and 8056. I'll paste the link later on so that you can look at these RFCs. So coming to the advantages of RDAP compared to WHOIS. So RDAP has several advantages like support for internationalization, secure access to data, and ability to provide differentiated access to registration data. Differentiated access means suppose if you want to give limited access for anonymous users and full access for authenticated users. So you can do this differentiated access using RDAP. So also RDAP function are fundamentally different from WHOIS. A WHOIS query is limited to specific database query, be it a registry operator or registrar's registration database. But by contrast, RDAP has a functionality which is known as bootstrap, and that enables a query to go beyond a specific registry operator or registrar. So it enables a search of all registration data available in RDAP service. So instead of returning a result such as not available, which we normally see in WHOIS query, the RDAP query will route to authoritative server to return relevant data. So this is different from WHOIS, where information is not linked across contracted party systems. So on the screen, you can see the structured JSON response this RDAP protocol returns. Next slide. So this was brief about RDAP. So these two are the current ongoing developments that have happened in RDAP space. This is in very preliminary phase of implementation. So there's RDAP implementation at .80, which is statelily for Australia. So basically, they have created an internal RDAP server to expose the registration details that have happened in .80 to the local house cert in a standardized way. So basically, this is kind of prototype to explore the path for a future public service. So coming to the RDAP utilities project. So basically this project is being led by Ali Hussain from University of Malaya. So what he's trying to do is to increase the adoption and usability of RDAP. And their key aim is to implement RDAP client into MATLAB, as no such implementation exists. And also they are trying to build browser extension for Chrome, Firefox, and Opera to easily access RDAP data. You can see screen grabs from the clients that they have built. On the bottom, you can see the MATLAB client, and on the right corner, you can see the extension that they have built. Next slide. So this was about RDAP. Now I'll cover a very interesting case study, the cyber attack on Grancy, which is very important for online businesses operating in our region. So Grancy is basically a domain service provider company which is based in Czech Republic, and it is also a ICANN accredited registrar. So basically this cyber attack on Grancy happened in September month, and essentially the nature of attack was destructive. The important thing to be noted here is that the goal of attack such attack is normally ransomware, but here the attack was done for doing liquidation of company, since the detail of the attack suggests that user data was not touched at all. What they did was they deleted the system configuration, the backup files, so as to liquidate the company in so coming on to the technical know-how, so Grancy Infra has basically 2 entry node with OpenSSH, and there are multiple servers with closed SSH, which are allowed only to internal IPs. So what they were doing was they were allowing access to these server via SSH key from the entry node. So this was the vulnerability point that proved in this attack. So what the attacker did was they gained access to one entry node, and attempted to delete system configuration and system backup files. So damage was phenomenal. The attacker eliminated all the info of Grancy and all related projects, which led to unavailability of services to end clients, and they took more than a month to restore all the services. So the learning that community here could take is that security obviously is very critical for online businesses. And the second thing, which is that is to take offline backups. And these backups must be fully independent. In the case of Grancy, the backup were not independent. So this provided a window for attacker to delete the backup. And also finally, root access via SSH key is to giving to entire info, basically not a good idea. So this was about cyber attack on Grancy. Next slide. Next slide, please. Rajkumar ji, next slide, please. Thank you. So I know I'm running out of time, so I'll quickly cover this last topic, which is IoT registry. So the current IoT ecosystem is based on hard-coded reference model, which is basically like SIM you see in the mobile phone that we use. So if you want to change service provider, the SIM has to be changed as the network and destination is hard-coded. So Sira, which is registry for .c, has developed an IoT framework which is zero touch and highly scalable. So what they do is serve as interface between the application service provider user and the cloud application service providers. So basically, there is a similarity between domain names and IoT devices. Suppose a domain owner can point that domain to any website on internet. Similarly, an IoT device has an owner, and that owner can make that device work with any application. So to make this happen, the provisioning and all, they are using eSIM, which is a crypto safe inside the device to securely establish a TLS session with a corresponding application server. And also they are very cost effective method to improve connectivity, and they allow flexibility of selection of operators. So this was from my side. Feel free to add to it because I know I may have missed something.
Thank you so much, Abhishek, for that really, really interesting set of updates. And as Abhishek said, if there's anything else from Tech Day that you would want to highlight, some of the sessions that you feel there were certain interesting learnings from it now, or even later, you can write into us that you would want to discuss about, explore. And we really hope that this is an interesting thread for the community to begin, like, at least have one session that talks about Tech Day at every readout, and we would be happy to actually have participants from outside also speak in and increase our knowledge, because as we said, we're not really tech experts, but it's an important aspect of the kind of work that we do to understand the underlying technology. So thank you then. And any questions that anyone want to say, questions, comment?